Welcome to Highway Herald, your roadmap to the latest in auto. In early 2025, trade tensions between the United States and Canada roared back into the spotlight, shaking two pillars of North America's economy: dairy and automobiles. Tariffs are climbing, supply management systems are being reinforced, and what started as a fight over milk and butter has spilled into steel, lumber, and cars. Today, we'll unpack how Canada is protecting its farmers, how US automakers are feeling the squeeze, and why this clash is about far more than dairy. Sparks fly, tariffs, dairy, and a brewing trade war. In August 2025, President Donald Trump intensified his trade offensive against Canada, raising tariffs on non-USMCA goods from 25% to 35%. Officially framed as a crackdown on fentanyl trafficking across the border, the move was widely seen as a calculated strike in America's long-running clash with Canada over its tightly guarded dairy system. Under Canada's supply management rules, U.S. dairy access is capped at just 3.5% of the market. Exceed that limit, and tariffs surge: 241% on milk and nearly 300% on butter. For American farmers exporting around $800 million in dairy annually, this feels like a locked vault. For Canada, however, it's an economic lifeline, safeguarding thousands of family farms. Trump's message was blunt: open the market wider or face tariffs expanding into larger sectors. Ottawa pushed back, stressing it accounts for only 1% of U.S. fentanyl inflows and has tightened enforcement. By August 1st, tariffs were hammering lumber, steel, aluminum, and auto parts, turning a dairy dispute into a full-blown battle over economic sovereignty. But Canada wasn't about to fold. In fact, it struck back with legislation designed to shield its most sensitive industries: Canada's Counterpunch, Bill C-202, and Supply Management Defense. In June 2025, Canada drew a firm line in its trade standoff with the U.S. by passing Bill C-202, legislation preventing supply-managed sectors like dairy, eggs, and poultry from being offered as concessions in negotiations. The move was deliberately timed to block President Trump's pressure campaign and reassure Canadian farmers that their livelihoods wouldn't be bargained away. For producers, supply management is more than policy. It ensures stable prices, production quotas, and protection against domination by U.S. agribusiness. In provinces like Quebec, Ontario, and British Columbia, the bill was celebrated as Ottawa finally standing firm. Yet critics warned Canada might be cornering itself. With 75% of its exports headed south, some argued that refusing flexibility could invite harsher retaliation. Beef and grain exporters, left outside the shield of supply management, feared losing leverage at the negotiating table. Prime Minister Mark Carney countered that dismantling the system would devastate rural economies, unravel farm-backed loans, and empty communities. Ottawa's message was clear: Canada may suffer in steel, autos, and lumber, but dairy is non-negotiable. And speaking of steel and autos, that's exactly where the trade war began to cut the deepest, hitting Detroit and the heart of America's car industry. Before we continue with Canada's long-term plan, if you're enjoying this breakdown, make sure to hit that subscribe button to Highway Herald so you never miss the latest auto and trade updates. Shockwaves in Detroit, auto and steel take the hit. If dairy is symbolic, steel and autos are the lifeblood of North American industry, and Trump's tariffs hit them hardest. Since June 2025, Canadian steel and aluminum have faced a 50% duty, sending shockwaves through Detroit's Big Three. General Motors reported a $1 billion profit drop in the second quarter, while Stellantis suffered a staggering $2.7 billion loss in just 6 months. Analysts expect Ford to show similar pain, all while automakers are already stretched investing in EVs, autonomous tech, and new platforms. The Ford F-Series, America's bestseller, relies heavily on Quebec aluminum. Added tariffs threaten margins and affordability, with researchers estimating $108 billion in industry-wide costs this year, translating to price hikes of up to $9,000 per vehicle. Smaller suppliers are also being squeezed, as tariffed components face double taxation. The ripple effects extend beyond factories. Detroit's auto plants sustain hundreds of thousands of jobs, and layoffs spread to local shops, logistics firms, and entire communities. Critics warn Trump's Buy American approach may be undercutting his own base, especially in pivotal Michigan. But while Detroit absorbs the blow, Ottawa recalibrated with a different strategy, using diplomacy and trade rules to restore stability. Diplomacy in motion, tariff rollbacks and USMCA as leverage. By late August, Canada signaled a shift in its trade standoff with the U.S. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced a rollback of many retaliatory tariffs, lifting duties on goods like orange juice, clothing, and appliances. The move restored tariff-free trade on over 85% of U.S.-Canada commerce, offering relief to consumers and manufacturers. Not everyone was pleased. Unifor, Canada's largest private sector union, condemned the rollback as capitulation, arguing that easing up without winning U.S. concessions only encourages further aggression. Opposition leader Pierre Poilievre echoed the criticism, saying Canada should have demanded full tariff removal first. Carney countered that the rollback was pragmatic. By aligning with USMCA exemptions, Canada protected key industries while keeping trade flowing. He insisted that Canada currently has the best trade deal with the United States, and maintaining stability was preferable to collapse. The episode underscored the dual role of the USMCA, both shield and leverage. Ottawa's real gamble is that the economic pain hitting Detroit and U.S. heartland industries will ultimately force Trump to reconsider his tariff-heavy approach, which brings us to Canada's broader strategy, its blueprint for survival in a stormy trade environment. Canada's game plan: defend, diversify, and de-escalate. Canada has adopted a three-pronged strategy to endure U.S. trade pressure: defend essentials, diversify markets, and de-escalate when possible. On defense, Bill C-202 placed dairy, eggs, and poultry off-limits in trade talks. Subsidies are shielding farmers, while support programs for steel and auto suppliers help them adjust to domestic demand, preserving rural and industrial stability. On diversification, Ottawa is accelerating outreach through agreements like CETA in Europe and CPTPP in Asia-Pacific. Reducing over-reliance on the U.S. Trump's tariffs underscored this vulnerability, pushing Canada to hedge its risks. On de-escalation, Prime Minister Carney's selective tariff rollback reassured businesses and allies. Analysts argue this careful diplomacy casts Canada as the adult in the room, balancing credibility abroad with open channels in Washington. Challenges remain, particularly the looming 2026 USMCA review and Trump's unpredictable tactics tying trade to unrelated issues. Still, optimism persists as farmland values climb and farmer organizations highlight resilience. Canada's approach may lack drama, but it shows smaller economies can survive, and even thrive, under pressure. So, how does this all play out in the bigger picture? Verdict: Shockwaves and strategy, Canada's steadfastness versus America's gamble. Canada's response to the 2025 trade crisis has showcased resilience and strategy. With Bill C-202, Ottawa fortified supply management, declaring dairy and family farms untouchable. Prime Minister Carney's selective rollback of retaliatory tariffs restored most trade flows, signaling pragmatism while avoiding collapse. Meanwhile, the U.S. is already reeling. Auto giants face billion-dollar losses, supply chains are tangled, and consumers brace for price hikes reaching thousands per vehicle. What Trump framed as leverage risks becoming self-inflicted damage. Ultimately, Canada's careful blend of legal safeguards, adaptation, and diplomacy may outlast America's tariff-heavy approach, shaping industries and communities across North America. Now, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you believe Canada's firm defense of supply management is a smart long-term move, or could it backfire in future trade talks? Are Trump's tariffs bold leverage that will spark change, or are they already hitting U.S. industries harder than Canada's? And as the 2026 USMCA review approaches, do you expect compromise, escalation, or a reset of the trade landscape? Share your insights in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to Highway Herald for more updates, breakdowns, and automotive deep dives. Thanks for watching and see you next time. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's more exciting and informative content waiting for you.